warm-up and the word stretching. Now, stretching is something that most people, though it's a very simple word, find very difficult to do correctly. And it's difficult because, of course, you're still asking your horse to be balanced on a long rein. And what you will find is some of the problems you will come across is your horse might run when you try and stretch it, it might overbend when you try and stretch it, or it might simply put its head and neck too high and just run away from you as the rider. So stretching is something a horse learns. They don't do it automatically. You have to teach the horse to stretch. So if you get on and just because I'm telling you to stretch, you give the horse a long rein and it doesn't, that doesn't mean your horse can't learn it. It means it needs to learn it. And for those people that find stretching difficult, the best stretching you will get in your session is very often at the end because the horse is tired. And when the horse is tired, it needs to stretch. When you get on a horse, particularly a young horse, if it's very fresh, if it's very nervous, then you will take time to stretch it because safety has to be first. And safety is important for all of us. So if you're on a 4-year-old, don't just give it a long rein just because I'm saying stretch and then get yourself into trouble. Put your horse on the contact at the beginning until you feel secure, your horse feels safe, and then we work on the stretching. But at the end of a session is when you're most likely to get your best stretching. So you have to think at the end of a warm-up, this is what I'm going to do next. So I'm just going to help Charlie a little bit with the stretching. Because Audrey is now 7 years old, she understands this a little bit easier than a 4 or 5-year-old would, but it's still something that's ongoing. So if your horse is very short in its conformation, so it has a short neck, it has a short back, quite like Audrey does, it's very important that you make your stretch very long. If your horse is conformationally, naturally very long, you will have your stretching a little bit shorter. So you have to look at what your horse's conformation and needs are as to how you stretch. It is important, this stretching exercises, that they are done again with relaxation and they are done with control. So I'm very much a believer in that you balance the horse first before you ride too forward, because if you just ride forward with no reins, very often you're just going to make your stretching worse because the horse becomes more on the forehand, and that is actually then detrimental to your warm-up. It's not actually helping very much. Inevitably on a long rein you're putting the horse more towards the forehand, but ideally it should still carry its head and neck in a balanced position. So what are we looking for in a good stretch? What we're actually looking for is that Charlie can ride with the lightest of rein. Now when you ride with a light rein, you're also allowing the horse to mouth on the bit. I don't want to have the contact strong. I don't want to have the contact heavy. I want the horse to be able to move its mouth, and I want her to feel almost that she just releases the hand forward. So she's doing trot and canter, which is absolutely the right thing to do for the warm-up. And I, being a big believer in transitions, literally want to see tens and tens and tens of transitions. Trot, canter, canter, trot, trot, canter, canter, trot, until I know that Charlie isn't using her reins to do the transitions. You can just use your voice from the canter to the trot and swinging. So how do we know if this horse is swinging? Well, we have to look at the horse's back. We have to see the tail. Does the tail move left to right? Does the back swing up and down? And that is a very good indication. And also look at the head and neck. We have to look at the whole horse. Does the head and neck come forward? Do we see the muscles in the neck moving? And what are the horse's ears doing? Bring her down here, Charlie, so we can just have a look in front of us. So she's just changing the rein again here. You look in the mirror. You have to see for yourself. That's it, that she's pushing the frame forward. Sometimes you'll get a feeling when you're stretching that you have nothing in your hand and you may think, my horse is stretching. And then you have to look in the mirror and you have to think, is the neck reaching forward? Is the nose coming in front of the vertical? Here we have starting to use herself, and she is starting to reach towards Charlie's hands there. And she's going to do the trot canter exercise again. So going from trot to canter, what you want to think in your warm-up is to lighten your seat. So you sit a little bit over your knee. That helps the horse then lift its middle, stretch the neck forward. And then I always think with the canter to trot, this is where you use your upper body, you use your weight aid, and you just come a little bit upright and then use your voice, allow with the hand. And don't give up. If this doesn't work, you have to keep doing it. That is the point of the exercise. You do it until it works. And canter again, so the upper body forward. Let's see a little bit of exaggeration with your upper body now. Let's imagine that she is only 4 or 5 years old and doesn't quite understand the stretching. So this time you make another transition to your trot. Through your voice, upper body up. And now relax the hand forward again. And the occasional pat on the inside of her neck there, look at how that helps the horse. Just breathe. That's what I want her to think. Breathe, stretch forward. Now let's exaggerate your upper body here, where you bring it forward over your knee and then canter with your upper body forward. Yeah, now there you can see the horse didn't need to lift the head and neck. Now why? Because if your horse isn't strong enough and you are sitting heavy on its back, that's why you will find we have the word hollow, where the horse throws the head and neck up to make the transition. Now, if your horse is young, that really helps. So trot again. Very good, you heard her using her voice there. I want her to think that the first trot stride is like the second and the third. And it is the same when you go into canter. Is your first stride like your third stride? So if you could canter there in front of us so we can see your upper body forward. Yeah. Good. All right, just that light seat, and now you sit again to help with your balance. See Charlie showing off there, riding with one hand. But of course what that showed there is that her horse is not relying on her hand. It isn't dependent on the reins to hold the head and neck in the right place. And trot again. And now let's go to the left side and just do that once more on the left side. So now we've already been on Audrey for 25 minutes. We've had the walk around the field just for relaxation. We've had the stretching exercises in the school, and this is before we do any transitions that really are going to be more uphill. But I think what we have achieved here is exactly how I like to see all schooling sessions. Breathing, easy, rhythm in the trot, rhythm in the canter, rhythm in the walk. Okay, so you were too heavy there with your upper body. So there we could see a transition where she was a little bit down on the horse's back, and therefore the hollowing of the head and neck again. So now this time a really light seat and forward again. Hands always in front of the saddle until you can canter where she lowers. Better. Horses, like riders, have stiff sides and they have softer sides. So as a rider, your job will be to find out what that is. Now most horses, I would say, and I can almost see it here with Audrey, fall out to the right on the left rein. So you have to think a little bit more with your outside leg, your outside rein to turn. And I would say that's fairly general for riders on the left. They need to bring the shoulders round. They need to use their outside leg to help bring the horse round. If you use too much inside rein, of course we get the head and neck bending, but the shoulder and the rib cage go to the outside. So trot again. So right side straight. So therefore, what you will often see from behind with riders is they're falling a little bit to the outside themselves. So there we have like a little counter bend. That's really good now. So I want you to think, is the head and neck in front of the chest? Yeah, that helps you bring the shoulder round. Your weight on both stirrups even. Now let the rein fully out. Perfect. That tells us the warm-up has been correct. The neck comes even further out, and we have a lovely balance there when she does that. And as I said, don't worry if you don't feel like you can achieve that in the very early stages. Keep going. Some horses take to the age of 7 or even 8 to really be able to fully open their bodies. Okay.